everyone. I'm Sarah Steen, and I run a food blog called Digesting Diversity. I've been conducting interviews with people from different cultural backgrounds and trying out the foods of their cultures after asking for recommendations for local restaurants serving those particular cuisines. My purpose in creating this blog has been to determine whether it is at all possible to get a taste of something more than simply the food by chatting about culture and then trying the authentic food of that culture. Here today I will be speaking to Ula, a fellow student at St. Louis University and a dear friend. In preparation for this podcast episode, I interviewed Ula about her Lithuanian background, and we will be expanding from there. Ula explained to me that her mother was born and grew up in Lithuania, and her father grew up in Chicago, where she also grew up and continues to live when she is not in St. Louis. But his parents were both from Lithuania as well. Hi, Ula. I'm so thankful you're willing to talk to me again about food.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So I believe you've told me before that Chicago has a large Lithuanian community. How has this changed the way you've grown up?
Yeah, so every weekend growing up, I would just spend it doing all sorts of Lithuanian activities where we would all take the time to get together and attend Lithuanian school, to Lithuanian folk dance, and other various organizations. So it definitely filled up a lot of my weekends growing up.
Wow, that's incredible. That's so nice. All right. So in our interview, you described a lot of typical Lithuanian foods, which I must say sound absolutely delicious and hearty, potatoes and all kinds of meat. But you say that your favorite food is pickled herring, which is something probably a lot of people tend to be afraid of. Can you tell the audience what exactly this is, and if you can think of a particular place or time when you've had the best pickled herring?
Yeah, it's you basically just buy it from a jar at your local Eastern European or Russian store, and then you take it out, you cut it up into bite-sized pieces, and then I love topping it off with some chopped up onions and some lemon juice. And honestly, there's no wrong way to do it, so every time I've had it, it's just equally delicious.
Well, I don't know. I would try it. I don't know if I'd like it, but it's interesting for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You also talked about Lithuanian Christmas Eve dinner, which I thought was really interesting. Can you briefly explain the unique food customs associated with this dinner and what they mean?
Sure. There's just these certain rules that you have with the big Christmas Eve dinner that everyone waits for. And it's things like you have to have 12 dishes, which represent the 12 apostles, since Lithuania is largely Catholic. And then you can't have any meat, you can't have dairy, and there can only be cold dishes. And I don't know exactly why there are all these rules for it, but it's just the way that it's done, and it's really not difficult. It's just a really unique way of celebrating it together.
Yeah, that is really cool. Okay. You also mentioned that there were some differences between American and Lithuanian food and eating customs. What exactly do you mean when you say that food is seen as a gift in Lithuanian culture?
Whenever you visit like a relative's house, they always just have a whole feast waiting for you, no matter how much you've eaten before, how many times you've told them that you're not going to be eating. And it's kind of expected that you eat and try everything that they prepared for you. Otherwise, you honestly kind of insult them. So I've just gotten used to making sure to stuff my face with all the goodies that they give us.
That's funny. It's interesting how much food can mean, like, to certain people. Mm-hmm. And, like, okay. So what do these kinds of food traditions mean personally to you? So, like, in other words, is it something that holds a lot of meaning, or is it just something that's so familiar to you that you don't really think twice about it?
I'd say it's a bit of both. It's definitely, it's mostly just, the main thing I like about it is that it's just a time to get together with the people that I love and the people I grew up with. And it's just a great excuse to get together and practice these traditions that we've been doing our whole lives.
Yeah, definitely. All right. And I also know that you've been to Lithuania at least once or twice, which I find really cool because I don't know much about it. Can you tell me a little bit about your experiences there, both with the culture and then with food within the culture?
Yeah. The first few times that I went there, it was kind of hard to get used to it. Although I knew all of the little rules and the language and such, it was still hard because the culture, like halfway across the world, is clearly, there's still these little subtle differences. And I can't explain anything specific. It's really just you have to be there, and then you just really feel the difference. And it's kind of cool that after some time you start to get used to it, and you kind of immerse yourself in as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, I don't want to keep you too long, so I'll wrap this up. When I asked what you think the importance of food and culture is, which is kind of a question I've been asking everyone I've interviewed, you said that it brings back each individual's memories associated with each dish, which I thought was really a quite beautiful sentiment. You gave the examples of maybe someone remembering their grandmother's take on a dish or taking them back to their last trip to Lithuania. Is there a specific personal memory you would be willing to share that you associate with a particular dish?
Oh, definitely. There's so many. But one of the main ones would probably be anything that my grandma used to make, because she came over and from Lithuania when she was in her 20s, and then she opened up a Lithuanian bakery in downtown Chicago. So she was really an expert at making anything. And there's this one specific Lithuanian cake called, in Lithuanian, Napoleonas, translated to Napoleon. And it takes several days to make because you have to make layer upon layer individually. And I think just the hard work and effort put into it and the dedication just is what really makes it taste good.
Wow, that's so interesting. All right, well, that's all I have for this podcast. Thank you so much for talking with me tonight, Ula. I'm so lucky to have such wonderful friends to surround myself with. I was hoping you could quickly teach me a Lithuanian phrase to end this interview. I was thinking maybe just, pass the salt, or a funny little dinner-related sentence.
Sure, I could teach you pass the salt.
Okay.
That would be pasusk troska.
Okay, pasusk troska.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I have it down perfectly, but pasus troska.
Nice.
And hopefully maybe one day I can pass the salt to you in a Lithuanian meal together. All right, well, thank you again, Ula.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, this was Sarah with Digesting Diversity. Tune in next time. Thank you.